Awesome. For everyone who's just coming in, we're going to get started in a couple minutes. We're just first inviting people to share your name in the chat and where you're calling in from, and let us know why you're joining us here today before we get started in about a minute or so. I will be right back. And again, as folks are joining, just let us know your name in the chat and what city you're calling from, and we'll be starting in about a minute. Welcome, everyone. We're going to start in a second. And again, for everyone who's joining, please tell us your name in the chat and where you're calling in from. It's really helpful to see where people call from on these power hours. And if you can, let us know why you've joined us here today. And we'll start in a couple of seconds. Amazing. Thanks everyone for joining. We have about over 350 people on this call so far. And again, as people are joining, just please continue to introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us your name, where you're calling from. My name is Celine. I'm here with the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, along some of my colleagues, Kat, Bria, Mike, and Mohammed. And we who are going to be supporting with tech, with chat moderation today. And just before we get started, we do have some ground rules for the chat. We do want you to connect with each other, but just please be mindful of the size of the event. So try to use the chat only to respond to prompts and questions. And if you want to follow up with a specific participant, you can reply directly to them. And if you experience any issues, please let us know. Again, you can message any of us who are moderating. And additionally, any Zionism, racism, sexism, Islamophobia, any oppressive language, any harassment in the chat will result in an automatic ejection from the event. So again, we'd like to thank you all for joining us here today. Again, as folks are joining, we're almost at 400 here on this power hour. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us your name, where you're calling in from, why you're joining us here today. And I'll introduce what are, kind of why we've been hosting these power hours and just an overview of the call. So we started these power hours to drive calls, right, to jam the phone lines for Palestine. And we kind of launched these in response to the Shut It Down for Palestine campaign, which was launched back in November. Actually launched at the National March on Washington and for Palestine. And this has been an avenue for us to gather people virtually to disrupt business as usual for our elected representatives. So we have about 400 people on this call. We're going to be calling, sending emails, tweets, like it's going to drive and build a lot of pressure today. So again, appreciate you all for joining. These calls are, of course, part of this broader network of actions to shut it down for Palestine. We've seen millions of people around the world engage in weekly, in almost daily demonstrations, walkouts, sit-ins, car caravans, pickets, direct actions, targeting the political offices, the businesses, workplaces that are funding, investing in, and collaborating with Israeli genocide and occupation. And I think one of the things that the mass mobilizations have shown us is that the importance of these demonstrations is that they've really shown us where the masses of people stand. They have been a space for us to communicate and mobilize around our demands with broad segments of our society. And our mobilizations, the calls we've been making, all the actions we've been taking have really shattered the image of Israel and made it so that the majority of youth, the majority of people in this country believe that Palestine should be free. So it's really important for us to be consistent and for us to continue to build pressure and momentum. And we just want to say also that we are organizing this today as part of the call to shut it down for RAFAH, right? Following the Zionist regime's massacre on RAFAH, which is currently the most densely populated area on earth. The Shut It Down for Palestine Coalition is calling for February 15th to the 17th as Global Days of Action for the over 1.5 million Palestinians currently under aerial bombardment and suffocating siege in Gaza's southernmost city. So, we're calling for protests, for rallies, for actions in our locales to uplift the calls to end Zionist bombardment of Rafah, to lift the siege on all of Gaza, where famine has reached an acute stage and hundreds of thousands are threatened with imminent death by starvation. We know that the massacres, the siege, the genocide, the continued Zionist colonization of Palestine continues because the US and its imperialist allies continue to back it economically, militarily, and diplomatically. Right? So the majority of the public in the US and around the world are supportive of a ceasefire, are showing up in the streets for Palestine. So the goal here is to force the political class to take positions that actually reflect their constituents and to